It is simply a matter of learning how to relax and exercise self-control. It was the moment that brought a producer a lot of money, but the actress who played the role in it was not happy about it. The infamous wet t-shirt scene that Jacqueline Bisset went through in the film The Deep has become one of the most talked about moments in the history of film. But how was it that this single shot was able to overwhelm everything else that was about the film? And what was it about The Deep that made it one of the most financial successes at the box office in 1977? Let's jump right in. Peter Benchley's novel of the same name, which he wrote in 1976, served as the inspiration for The Deep. Benchley's novel was published shortly after the enormous success of Jaws. Before the book was even released to the public, Columbia Pictures purchased the rights to the novel because they recognized the potential for another hugely successful underwater film. However, Tracy Keenan Wynn and Tom Mankiewicz would subsequently alter Benchley's work after it had been initially written by Benchley himself. Benchley was hired to create the initial script. It was the studio's hope that they would be able to capture lightning in a bottle once more by combining elements of adventure, suspense, and underwater action. However, this time they wanted to add a different kind of threat, one that included a dangerous criminal underground, deep-sea diving, and sunken treasure. The story of the movie revolves around a young couple named David Sanders and Gail Burke, who are on holiday in Bermuda. Nick Nolte and Jacqueline Bisset portray the roles of the pair, respectively. A wonderful discovery is made by them during their diving expedition. It is an ampule of morphine that was taken from a ship that sank during World War II called the Goliath. Additionally, they find a mystery gold medallion. In a short amount of time, their discovery catches the notice of Henri Cloche, a vicious drug kingpin who is portrayed by Louis Gossett Jr. and who is interested in recovering the ampules for their worth on the street. Romer Treese, a local treasure hunter and marine specialist, is portrayed by Robert Shaw, a grizzled veteran who has a lot of information about the ocean and its buried secrets. The couple seeks assistance from Romer Treese while they are being terrified by Cloche's goons. Treese has the ability to identify that the Goliath is perched on top of a much older wreck, which is one that contains precious treasure from Spain. Cloche and Treese's crew engage in a high-stakes competition for possession of the shipwreck's loot, which ensues in the form of a race. Both teams are forced to contend with the environment, underwater perils, and each other in this intense competition. An enormous project, filming The Deep, required months of underwater shooting in real locations and expertly designed artificial sets. The Deep was a film that was shot in real places. A number of locations in the British Virgin Islands, including Black Rock Point, Salt Island, and Peter Island, were visited by the production team in order to film in close proximity to the actual wreckage of the RMS Rhone. Additionally, the film's authenticity was further enhanced by the fact that other portions were shot at the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, due to the fact that director Peter Yates desired to achieve the highest possible level of realism. The leading performers, including Nick Nolte, Jacqueline Bisset, Robert Shaw, and even Louis Gossett Jr., were required to acquire the ability to scuba dive. The majority of the cast had very little to no prior expertise in diving. Therefore, this was not an easy feat to do. In instance, Bisset was originally scared of the water, but by the time filming was over, he had gained sufficient confidence to dive to depths of up to 60 feet. Over the course of the production, an astounding 8,895 dives were completed, and a total of 10,870 person-hours were spent underwater. Bermuda was the location where the world's largest underwater set was built in order to accommodate scenarios that required meticulous choreography for reasons of safety. This pool was an artificial pool that was 33 feet deep and filled with millions of gallons of seawater. It was constructed primarily to avoid the need for regular decompression, which was a requirement that was previously necessary. On the other hand, despite the fact that these safeguards were taken, filming in such conditions rendered the actors and crew both physically and mentally exhausted. The water was not the only obstacle that needed to be overcome in order to complete The Deep. Additionally, there was a good deal of drama that occurred behind the scenes. In the beginning, director Peter Yates was not certain that Nick Nolte should play the major character, and Nolte himself was not particularly interested in playing the role. Indeed, officials from Columbia Pictures were apprehensive as well, since they believed that he did not possess the star power necessary to carry a major motion picture. Despite this, producer Peter Guber was adamant about casting him, and after a tense meeting, Yates came around to the idea and came to the conclusion that Nolte was the ideal candidate for the role. It was reported that Jacqueline Bisset and Nick Nolte did not get along at first, which was another obstacle that occurred between the two actors who played the key roles in the movie. Because of the strained chemistry that existed between them on set, it was challenging to film their romantic scenes. Nevertheless, as the production went, their relationship took an unforeseen turn, and they established a real-life romance that lasted for the majority of the production. Yates believed that the arrival of this new dynamic contributed to the enhancement of their on-screen relationship, which in turn made their performances more credible. Robert Shaw, on the other hand, was a formidable opponent, having recently completed his legendary performance as Quint in the film Jaws. In spite of the fact that he contributed his years of knowledge and gravitas to the movie, he was notorious for his heavy drinking. One of the most notorious tales from the set has Shaw getting so intoxicated one evening that he attempted to walk across a wooden plank that led to a boat. However, he stumbled, fell into the water, and then managed to escape in a dinghy before being rescued by Nolte. Now, let's talk about the most important thing in the room, which is the infamous scene of the wet t-shirt. During the beginning of the movie, the character of Gail, played by Bisset, is seen scuba diving in the perfectly clear waters of Bermuda while wearing a thin white t-shirt over her bikini. The fabric clings to her body as she rises from the water, creating an image that would go down in the annals of Hollywood history. More so than the treasure searching, the action sequences, or the spectacular underwater showdowns, the moment became the defining visual of the deep. It was even more significant than the treasure hunting. It didn't take long for producer Peter Guber to see the possibilities for marketing that this sequence possessed. This image was promoted by the studio through advertisements in magazines, posters, and even stories in Playboy and Penthouse. But Bisset was enraged by the situation. Because the marketing for the movie reduced her character to nothing more than eye candy, she felt as though she was being used. She later said in interviews that she believed the manner in which the film was promoted was distracting from her real performance, and that she regretted the way it was pushed. As soon as she learned that Columbia Pictures intended to produce a separate poster of the photograph, she threatened to take legal action, which ultimately resulted in the studio abandoning the proposal. Bisset, who wanted to be treated seriously as an actress rather than a sex symbol, was left with a lasting sense of frustration as a result of the sequence, especially considering that it was a significant contributor to the success of the picture. Despite this, the controversy served to amplify the excitement that was already around the movie, which ultimately contributed to its becoming one of the highest-grossing films of the year. When it was first released in 1977, The Deep generated a significant amount of revenue at the box office. In its first weekend of release, it broke records that had been previously established by Jaws by grossing more than $8 million. By the time it had completed its run in theaters, it had amassed over $100 million in revenue throughout the globe, making it one of the highest-grossing pictures of 2010. Reactions, on the other hand, were generally contradictory. A number of individuals lauded the movie for its magnificent underwater cinematography and exhilarating adventure sequences, while others believed that the narrative was lacking in depth and wandering aimlessly. In spite of the fact that it received a variety of reviews, The Deep has managed to maintain its status as a cult classic. It is known for its breathtaking photography, its technological accomplishments, and, of course, that contentious sequence. Additionally, the film served as a catalyst for subsequent underwater thrillers such as Into the Blue, 2005, which utilized a significant number of the film's components. Now is the moment for you to provide feedback. Do you believe that The Deep would have found the same level of popularity if it had not been for its notorious marketing? Was Jacqueline Bisset justified in her dissatisfaction with the manner in which the movie was promoted? Post your thoughts in the comments section below.